Now it's live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the amazing F1 Failcast. And we are back with the review of the Chinese Grand Prix 2018 whilst driving cars mediocrely. Alongside me, as ever, is the amazing taco-fueled Esther Ben. How are you doing?
Buenos dias, amigo. I have to say, you managed to deliver that opening line very well because there's some difficult words in there that I would have fluffed. So I was quite proud of you. I have had an amazing Saturday. I'm going to open this stream's beverage. It's Red Bull Summer Edition,
Ooh.
Coconut and Blueberry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. It's an old one, isn't it?
Can we have a live review of the first glug?
A live tasting.
Yeah. Genuinely intrigued.
That is a tasty beverage. It's more blueberry than coconut. Like the coconut's kind of mellow. It's on the aftertaste. I thought when I saw it, I thought I probably won't like this, but I felt a duty to get it and drink it on stream just because. But it's actually quite good. So yeah, I recommend it.
Nice. It's got to be better than the horrible special editions of drink that's been going around in the UK with cola. So they've done a peach cola, a exotic mango cola, but it just tastes like someone's accidentally spilt some Robinson's drink in it, and so it doesn't taste quite right. It's all like messy.
Is this Coca-Cola with these flavours?
Yeah.
That is insane. I haven't seen those here, but here we actually, like in Germany, it's common to mix like Fanta and cola, and you can buy it bottled. It's called Schweizy, and yeah, it is quite nice actually, but I always thought it was a bit odd. But there we go. That's beverage news.
Canter.
I have had an amazing afternoon. I've been eating tacos in the sun. There's a bar in my neighbourhood, and I absolutely love it. It's my favourite bar. And I went down there for a crafty afternoon pint because the sun's out. It's quite nice here today. It's supposed to be 21, but it must be like 27 or something. Nice. And when I got there, there was this stand with 3 Mexicans, 2 in sombreros, 1 in a luchador mask. And genuinely, and Mexican flags everywhere. And I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. I should do the stream from here. And I had 2 chicken tacos that blew my mind. And then they were so good. I saw a sign saying they were selling the tortillas. So I came home with 1/2 kilogram of tortillas. For a $5 as well, bargain.
Nice.
So yeah, I've been drinking beer in the sun, eating chicken tacos. It's been a hell of a day, and this now is the icing upon it. It's time for the American Grand Prix. While we talk about the Chinese Grand Prix, and you and I have both been struggling with this track in practice.
We have. I have traditionally never gone particularly fast around here at all, but then I've had my old nemesis playing other racing games up until playing this, which has then meant that I am extra fat on the throttle. But yeah, I just can't help but corner cut this circuit and straight line everything where possible. So I'm so sorry in advance for anyone that watches this with an eye-rolling deposition.
What I'm finding is that I can put in like a really fast lap once in a session, just once.
Yeah.
And my performance is super mercurial, and if you look at like my lap time history, it'll be like 139.4, 140, 140.2, 139.2, 140.8, and it's all over the place.
I know what you mean. I can never do the same. I can't do the same lap twice.
No. And we've been complaining about the curbs all the way through this season because, historically, taking to the curbs was a bit of an advantage. Mm-hmm. And you paid for it with tyre wear. But in this game, like, just touching them is bad news. Bad news bears. There's 2 tenths that you're never going to see again. Hello there, mate. Good to see you. I hope you're well.
Oh, here we go.
We have a hell of a race to review, actually, which I'm looking forward to.
We do. It's been, after all the doom and gloom of everyone going, oh my god, Australia was absolute snooze fest awful, the world is going to end. Actually, we've had 2 blinders, so I've been really, really pleased with that.
I'm good, thank you, mate. I was just saying before you joined the stream, I've been eating tacos in the sun and drinking beer, so it's been pretty good. And why I would never normally advocate drinking and driving, drinking and virtual driving, I think is a beautiful combination.
So to try and compensate, I should talk very briefly about the game. Because I've got fat finger syndrome, because I've played too much Gran Turismo Sport, I've gone tactical, and this could blow up in my face. I have reduced my on and off throttle differential so that it's number to my fat fingers. Is my plan.
Well, we're both struggling with the slow corner as well. And I'm really bad with the corner numbers. Maybe you know it.
Nah. End of Sector 1 is the one you're talking about, isn't it? Or is it?
No.
Or is it the double left?
Possibly. I mean, I thought everyone was spinning there, so maybe not. Maybe I'm inept in my own special and unique way.
Well, it is Failcast.
So shall we dive in then? We've just got a little bit of news, but mostly it's all about the Grand Prix. Now we'll do the usual. We'll talk qualifying during qualifying. What did you make of it?
Qualifying?
Yeah. Because it gave me a lot of hope for Kimi again, and you always know in the back of your mind that Ferrari are going to find a way to screw things up for him.
And they managed to do so yet again. But yeah,
yes, they did.
I have been delightful. I was just. Any regular viewer should also have been taking their first shot for a siren in the background of Esteban. Clearly, they've gone to collect the luchador. He's causing a problem down somewhere. For me,
there's a second one.
There's going to be a third one, so that all three get taken away in separate vans. You cannot cook the tortilla. For me. It's been a revelation this year, at least on the single lap, how competitive Kimi has been. I don't know what the change or difference is. He just seems to be happy with this type of car, and it seems to be a bit more front-endy for him, I guess. But it's really, really good. And when it's so nice to have, especially on a weekend where Lewis seems to be having his own little self-harming fest, that it's not it's just going to be Vettel then, or an errant Red Bull, or if Bottas wakes up. It's genuinely which Ferrari's going to get it. And we had that slightly towards the end of last year, but this year has really confirmed Kimi on a one lap has not... I don't know if he ever lost it, but he certainly regained it, for me.
It's been very odd for me, because I still feel like we're not seeing what's going on with Mercedes. I'm so used to them dominating that it feels very odd to me to see Ferrari out there taking the pole positions quite comfortably, actually. I mean, the gap in Bahrain was big. The gap in China was bigger than I expected as well, actually. Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Yeah, it is disgraceful how they treat Kimi. We will definitely be complaining about that at length in the race. And it just feels so stupid as well. It is shooting yourself in one of your feet. Just because the right one wears a nicer shoe. It's a really bizarre way to treat half of your team. Because, I mean, it's not just the driver either. It's half the garage that suffers from these decisions. But
that's a really good point, actually.
But yeah, it's exciting in a way. I'm pleased to see Ferrari up there, because I think we needed a change, and I think Ferrari have been on a long enough drought as it is. And I still can't seem to shake the feeling that they are only firing on one cylinder somehow, but half the time that is their own fault.
Yeah.
And I just can't put my finger on what's gone wrong for Mercedes.
Well,
it really doesn't make any sense.
No, they were complaining about how in Bahrain the tyres were too hot, but in China the tyres were too cold. So I don't know if this goes back to the DNA of last year's car being a diva, and this still being an issue. But it was an interesting one, because it sounds awful, but when Lewis isn't on it, I feel like Bottas gives a much better representation of where Mercedes truly is, as opposed to Lewis bossing it or being nowhere, because it's too yin and yangy. So it was interesting for me to kind of go, so that Mercedes is actually in genuine pace, a couple of attempts off, because he didn't seem to have though that tyre heating issue nearly as bad as what Lewis did. But
No, although he did seem happier on the harder compounds, which seemed odd to me. Because those are the ones that are harder to heat up.
yeah. So are they telling the
truth?
truth?
Is very unusual.
Yeah. Are they telling the truth? I wonder. I don't know.
But I actually I agree with you massively. I mean, that's always been Lewis's problem, right? His failings as a driver have always been psychological. That he gets in his own head. It's not like people play mind games with him. He plays mind games with himself.
Exactly.
It's like he gets back to his motorhome at night and goes, "No one wants to buy my rap album," and then and then that's it. He can't drive, and you can always tell. Rosberg was kind of the same actually, and I don't know any of the drivers like them. That you can tell how they're going to perform in the next weekend by how they interview after a race.
Yeah, exactly.
So like I knew after in the post-race interview in Australia, I knew that Hamilton was going to be nowhere in Bahrain. Because do you remember he got second in the first race of the season?
Yeah.
And he sat in his car with his head in his hands, like he'd lost the championship. And I was thinking, Jesus Christ, pull yourself together, man. It's a 20-round season. You've got plenty of time to make up the gap. What are you going to do, Hulkenberg? Thank you. They
He's
so
going to
often just
qualify
turn
seventh.
in on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to qualify 7th. I wonder if that's on his credit card. Or, credit card number, please, Mr. Hulkenberg. 777 7777 7777.
So yeah.
Now the phone is ringing. Jesus Christ.
Everyone wants to be your friend. Everyone wants those tacos.
Everyone wants a bit of the tacos, right? This next lap's going to be my in-lap because I fluffed it.
I spun off in Sector 1, so I'm coming in as well.
That is a very good question. Is it possible that Hamilton realises his reign has come to an end?
Sob.
That is a really good question, actually, because you and I, Simon, have said all along that he will probably stay in Formula 1 for as long as he's winning. And we speculated that he might equal Schumacher's number of titles just because of how dominant the Mercedes looked. That by the time the formula change came around, he would have enough time to gather those titles with that advantage sort of baked in. And that is a really good point because we never really considered that we'd have to talk about this, about whether he thinks his reign is coming to an end and how he would handle it, whether he could deal with a fall from grace. Because he's one of the few drivers that really does believe his own hype. Vettel's the other one. Because the thing about Fernando is he's widely considered to be the best driver on the grid, but he never refers to himself like he is. Do you know what I mean? He is surprisingly modest, I find.
Yeah, because
he's just got sort of a quiet confidence more than anything else.
Yeah, I guess whenever we hear him, he's always trying to bring everything up to his level, as opposed to saying that he is the best, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I hate this pit entrance.
Oh, I've been in the wall there.
Yeah, I've been in the wall there. The first 2014, I crashed in the wall here. Because when you're on pit entry, it looks like a corner that you can take with a little bit of speed, and obviously you don't want to lose time on your pit entry. But then, surprise wall, and that wall is perfectly placed. That if you carry even a little bit too much speed through, you just nose into it straight away. I don't think I'm going to go again. I already did way more laps than I was going to. But I came into this thinking the best I could hope for was a top 5 in the race. But now I'm feeling like maybe you and I can be in a little bit of a pole shootout, which we haven't had the last few rounds, and now we started the season so competitively as well.
I know. I do find that actually towards the end of the season are some of my more weaker tracks. I don't know if it's just because we never get that far, but and it's actually quite often the newer tracks are towards the end of the season, and maybe I'm just not ingrained so much into them. But it's. Yeah, I
who we're
don't
going
know
to watch.
if Hamilton's reign has come to an end or not. I think his reign and his end of his reign is going to be down to him whether or not he chooses to go before it ends or not. And that's going to depend on when he drops his latest single, Hot Stuffs. Oh, yeah. I'm going to go again because I'm still getting used to driving F1 2017. So, but I'm going out on the same tyres, so I don't expect too much.
That means I can go on board with you, which is good.
But yeah, it was nice to see Bottas a little bit more smiling and happy. It was good to see. Can we give a shout out to Danny Rick's engineers for getting that?
Hell of a job.
Yeah, because
I wanted to talk about that actually, because I mean, they broke their engine rebuild record by an hour. By that's a full third. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment.
I wonder how you can shave that amount of time off, though. What is it? Just like people literally just laying on top of each other, going go go go.
Well, apparently, like Max's guys kept wandering across to help when they had a moment. That was a nice cut. However, the thing is, I won't talk about this now actually, because it's part of the race review. But I do want to talk about this. So do remind me. Just at some point when we're doing the race review, say to me, Helmut Marko, and I will remember what I want to say.
Is this where you just spasm out and crash?
Yes. But I will touch on Helmut Marko in the sense of the engine rebuild rather than the race. So they interviewed him very briefly, asked him about the engine rebuild and stuff. And Christian Horner as well. Now, Christian Horner, credit to him, just sounded proud of his team, in at least in that segment. You know, he said it was a really great effort, really pleased. Helmut Marko said basically the same thing, but something in his eyes, something in his eyes says I am a robot, but something in his eyes and his tone was saying, you know, like he was weighing up the possibility that they could always do it in 2 hours, and that usually they're just fucking around. So I get the feeling like. Because he was kind of like happy but angry at the same time, and maybe that's just his demeanour, and that's why everyone gets fired at Red Bull all the time. But it seemed like, you know, it was good news, but it made him angry in a way that he didn't fully understand.
Because it is a lot of time to suddenly find. So I see like where he could be coming from potentially, but. Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was a really good thing, and I suppose it brings on, and I don't know if it's good to talk about it now in quali, but how on earth did Renault not provide a full engine for them to begin with at the first place? And what does that say about their status as a like customer and relationship kind of thing between Red Bull and Renault? Because I think that speaks volumes if they're not even giving them full proper engine units. Oh, what was I doing? I braked way too early.
Well, I mean, the relationship isn't good at all. We spoke about this at the end of last season as well, right? That we said this is almost certainly their last year with Renault. The relationship has degraded so much.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that Renault were giving them the bits that fell off the back of the truck at all. I wouldn't be surprised if all the Renault failures this year happen at Red Bull. And again, when I say that, in case Renault's lawyers are listening, I'm not necessarily saying that Renault would deliberately provide defective units. What I'm saying is that they've got, first of all, no incentive to provide detailed feedback and assistance, and they've got no horse in the race in terms of telling Red Bull to, you know, maybe calm it on certain areas of development. You know, this again is a reflection of the problems between McLaren and Honda, right? That Honda were making, they were giving input about what they needed for the engine to function, and McLaren were ignoring it. And in this case, I get the feeling it's the other way round. That, you know, Red Bull are saying, we're going to go very aggressive on the packaging here, and we're going to do this and this, and then Renault are just sort of like, that sounds nice. And just not giving them any input. I do get the feeling that we're going to see Red Bull Honda soon, and I think that is why we won't see Daniel Ricciardo in a Red Bull next year. Because I think he knows that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, actually, and we'll talk about this in the race review more, but it was interesting to hear his reactions after winning the race. Because that was a very up and down analysis of his performance that he gave. I'm no longer on top, but that's fine. I'm still safe. It looks like it could rain from this camera angle, but I don't think it will it?
I didn't look at the weather, actually. Which is probably means that it's going to piss down on the race and that we're now on dry setups and we're doomed.
Yeah, anyway, carrying on with qualification. Some interesting stuff to note. For the first time, I believe Charles Leclerc outqualified the Merrickson.
Yep.
Not that that was to last, of course. You can't beat the Merrickson. Toro Rosso, dire weekend. Very disappointing, I think, off the back of Bahrain. Both seemed to struggle all the way through the weekend, but qualifying was quite a dour and miserable affair as well. Briefly, Brendan Hartley made a jump in Q1 where I thought, oh, maybe he's on the bubble, maybe he'll just squeeze through, but no, it was not to be. It was like the Merrickson flash in the pan lap that happened in Australia, where suddenly he leaps up to like 8th, and you think, fucking hell, that's brilliant, and then everybody gradually pushes him back down to the bottom. But I still get the feeling, every session that I see the Toro Rossos running, it feels like Sainz and Verstappen all over again. I mean, to be fair, Hartley hasn't done anything stellar. He's not been pulling great performances out of the bag. But I get the feeling that even if he was, the press would be ignoring him, and the team would be ignoring him.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, because if he does well and beats Gasly, then it's like Gasly gets the shit anyway, because they're like, oh, well, you was a lucky GP2 champion. If Hartley does well, then it's, oh, well, we expected you to do well anyway because of all of these championships, and you didn't beat Gasly by nearly enough. Bye. So he's kind of he's buggered no matter what he does, which is why I hope that he just races and enjoys himself and looks outwardly from the Toro Rosso camp rather than inwardly, because from the Red Bull program, sorry, because I just can't see him long term having any kind of future beyond maybe next year at an extreme push. But I think he's out at the end of this year already.
Yeah, me too, to be honest. Which is sad, because I always felt, even at the time, he deserved a crack. And I don't think he's getting a fair shake of the stick here. But it's also, but at the same time, when I heard he was coming back, it was such a surprising announcement. That it was almost like, you know, and in today's news, Toro Rosso have announced a lineup next year: Pierre Gasly and Chef Boyardee. What? Like, I know he's like a motorsport professional and he's a multiple-time world endurance champion and whatever, but you just sort of, it's the thing with Formula One that the ship just sails, doesn't it? Like it did with Robin Frins, for example. He was always supposed to be the next big thing in Formula One, never made it, and. Like if he was announced as a Williams driver next year, jaws would hit the floor. I'm going to try and get through on the harder compound. Why the devil not?
Oh, it's going to rain right at the end of the race. Yeah.
Of the session.
Of the race, sorry, not our quali. Quali's drive.
Beautiful. So yeah, I do kind of feel. I think the label we gave him last week is the best one, though. That he is a butt plug or a dildo.
Yeah.
He's filling a gap till a better offer comes along. I still think that's a great analysis of him. I want to see that in autosport. You know, in future generations of drivers, just, you know, a name like Collins, butt plug ? As a headline.
Excellent. Oh, it's going to rain at the end of key 3 as well.
Of course it is.
But we'll have done our times by then.
Well, you say that, but I've noticed that I've been getting a lot more problems in qualification that keep me in the garage.
Oh.
You know those ones where it's like, oh, we found a problem with the with the battery or whatever, and it's like you can't qualify for another 5 minutes. That has happened to me almost every quali session.
I've never had
career
that in
mode
the
recently.
entire time of this game. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Do you know you're even the number one driver when we're not driving together? That's upsetting.
Just call me Rogro.
Moving up the grid, and we'll come back to Brendan Hartley later in the race. I want to talk to you about Renault, because I think they've done a brilliant job coming into this year. But what is going on with Carlos Sainz? Because Hulkenberg seems to, I thought coming into this year, and you and I spoke about it in the preseason review as well, that Hulkenberg and Sainz was a driver lineup that tickled both our fancies greatly, because it just seemed like the perfect driver match. You know, a slightly older, more experienced driver who is proven quality, finally getting a chance to show what he's capable of in a work-spacked outfit. And then Sainz, who we thought was the most underrated of the young gun drivers. But Hulkenberg seems to have been playing a little bit of daddy domination, and Sainz just can't touch him, much like MC Hammer.
Well, Sainz is saying that he's still getting used to the car, which I find quite interesting as a excuse / problem.
Sorry, I made noises there because I forgot that when you follow a car, it actually simulates a disrupted airflow and you can't turn as well. So I completely fluffed that fast chicane.
We was watching you from an off-board camera, and you zigzagged from one side of the screen to the other. It looked like a comedy act waiting to happen. Still going though, man.
Right. Yeah. This lap is a write-off, I think, and I need to back off and let Hulkenberg get away. Much like Carlos Sainz. So yeah, give me your insights. What's going on with Sainz?
So I think Sainz, he looked fine in Australia-ish. Bahrain was a bit off. He looked better in China, and I did like their little squabble on lap 1 in the race, where they seemed to swap positions a few times. So there's clearly an intent there. But yeah, Sainz, it's strange. It's like he's not quite found how to make that car last over the course of a race, because what I found slightly meh in for China was that they started off at the beginning of the race side by side and were together, but by the end of it there was a Vettel and Alonso and so on behind, and so I don't necessarily think that there's a one lap pace problem yet with Sainz, but maybe consistency and metronomic pace over the course of a Grand Prix weekend. There's a bit more of a worry there. And I guess this also comes back to... I don't know if they... Because it was an entirely new car and this, that and the other, I did wonder, actually, last year, apart from meeting team personnel and stuff, just exactly how nice is it to have... races before you go live at the for a fresh season at the end of last year, and how relevant that is to the car that you're then going to get. So yeah, I think Sainz will come, but I do think he needs to watch it over the course of a Grand Prix distance, because otherwise Hulkenberg is, especially with his tendency for I'll have 7th thanks, will end up being best of the rest, and that doesn't matter then if Sainz is 8th all the way through and right on his tail. He's not best of the rest, and that's why being 7th I think is actually one of the, particularly in this 2-tier Formula 1 quote unquote, actually being 7th is probably the next best after being 3rd.
I completely agree, and you make some interesting points there actually, because we spoke last year about how happy Sainz just looked to be at Renault. He looked delighted to be there, and they seemed delighted to have him. And I thought he took to that team really quickly, actually. He really impressed me. Given that, it's such a disruption to change teams like that. I thought he took to the new car very, very well. And that's why it's a little surprising to me that suddenly Hulkenberg is spanking his bottom, because maybe the car is radically different. I don't know. But it just seems odd to me that he was able to go from the Toro Rosso to the Renault and stay competitive. But he's gone from Renault to another Renault, and It's not that he's nowhere. It's just he's not where he should be.
Or as close as what he was to Hulkenberg last year. The gap's increased, hasn't it? So,
and of course, last year no one expected him to be beating Hulkenberg because it's, as you say, changing teams. It's disruptive. I am nowhere in this session. I might not even make it through. I didn't realise how tight the gap was, to be honest.
Is it like Virgin tight?
Yeah, Richard Branson has trademarked it. But also the car just doesn't feel anywhere near as sweet on this compound tyre. Are you qualifying on the Ultras?
Yeah.
That is the smart thing to do. I'll see where this lap puts me. And see how lucky I'm feeling, Punk. Because I've already put more laps onto these tyres than I wanted. That curb kills me every time. Look at you just hemorrhage time just for brushing the curb. Yeah, I'm P7. I don't think... It's good that we're talking about Hulkenberg when that happens, but I don't think that's enough to get me through, is it?
Well, I'm just about to cross the land, so let's see. I go fourth.
That's P4. You've moved up to P4.
Right, that's me sorted. I'm not gonna try anything else. I'm between a Kimi and a Max.
That's a pretty good showing.
That'll do for me.
I want to talk again next about Haas in qualifying. Again, quite a big disparity between them.
Yeah.
I just don't know what's going on. That's even more baffling to me than the difference between Hulkenberg and Sainz.
I find it really interesting that K-Mags has woke up. Well, not woke up, but Roman Grosjean, now that he has a teammate that is actually decent, because Gutierrez, your fellow Esteban, was just poor, and so he could coast through that season and have a team that was dominant by him. K-Mag took a while to get up to speed in that Haas, but now he's got it, and he's got a team that like his fighting spirit, and is not bitching about the brakes or the car or being so angrily French at everything. I do wonder if the tables start to turn within the team towards K-Mags, because he's so much more of a outwardly likable person. That's really awful, but you know what I mean.
But the thing is, I used to like Roman when he was at Lotus. I thought he was quite affable and quite friendly, pretty cheerful. Mm-hmm. But then, no, something happened. Something happened at Haas. He had a rod up his arse, possibly. But whatever happened, he's nowhere near as likable as he used to be. But also, it seems like the team are going off him.
Yeah, and I think that's because K-Mags brings along that fighting spirit and pushes that aggression outward, as opposed to Grosjean that pushes it within the team. And the issue with that is that you can only tell people that things are wrong and things are terrible and this shouldn't be happening for so long before people go, well, shut the F up and deal with it, because that's what we need to work together, not against each other. And until he's putting in performances where he can command that respect again, because you go back to Brazil last year in the wall on the outlap, that ruined some results. You can't then come back and start going like, oh, the brakes, because you've lost that. In my mind, anyway, you've lost that not ability. I'm trying to think of entitlement to have that superiority in saying I need to go here, here, and here. And so for me, that then automatically migrates a team towards the other driver who's working with people, and then it's no wonder that you'll see that disparity. I mean, it was only one race and he got caught out in that. It was here that he got caught out in Q1, wasn't it? In China.
Yeah, I don't think he made it out of Q1, did he?
Yeah, and it was by the slenderest of margins. But but it makes me so angry. Well, not angry, but lament just how costly Australia is because they're already slipping down the order.
But again, we never really spoke about this aspect of what happened in Australia, actually. And while it's not relevant to qualifying here and now, I think it's a good time to touch on it. Because what we didn't mention when we talked about the incident with the wheel nuts is what their excuse for it was that they didn't have enough time to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Or they hadn't taken enough time to practice.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the Parc Fermé podcast, which is the renamed Formula One blog podcast, which everyone knows I'm a big fan of. And there's a race driver who features on there regularly, Paul Charlesley, and he was saying that to him that is not an acceptable excuse in Formula One.
No.
Pit stop practice is vital. It can cost so much time if your pit stops are not perfect. That you just have no excuse for not practicing them. And he said, this is reflective of stuff that I've said in the past, that you can't just rely on that Ferrari crutch forever.
No.
And this is an aspect of it because, well, they've bought all the parts off the shelf that they can, then everything else is up to them, and they still fluffed it.
Mm-hmm.
And the bit that's up to them is relatively minor compared to what other teams have to manage. So, yeah, very, very interesting. But, I mean, clearly the car is good. Maybe not as good as it looked in Australia. And so while there's no excuse for the team, it also means there's no excuse for Grosjean, because K-Mags is showing what is possible.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have another teammate-to-teammate disparity so far this season that's been so great. I mean, Van Dorn and Alonso were not particularly close in China. And Van Dorn continues to underwhelm me, but, I'd fire Grosjean before I fired Van Dorn at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. Yeah, and I don't know... Grosjean just needs to focus on himself and stop focusing on everyone else, and maybe stop sampling all of those cookbook treats. Although, if he is no longer in Formula One, then he might open a restaurant, and then we could do a podcast from the restaurant.
I don't think, after all the jokes we've made in the last 4 years, we'd be allowed into his restaurant, to be honest.
Boo. Ah, damn it. Never mind.
I would agree with your assessment there. Another comment from chat. K-Mag and Grosjean are on different spectrums, but what he's saying is that K-Mags is glad to be in a team that actually wants him, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, because obviously McLaren cast him aside very quickly, and I think Renault failed to extract the best from him. Not that I would question their decision to... I've completely balls this lap already because I was trying to read and speak and drive at the same time.
You're well in, by the way.
Huh?
You're well in, by the way. You'll be fine.
Oh, good. I'm annoyed now because it feels like I didn't actually need to go out again. And now I'm going to be on the softer tyre for no actual reason.
It depends on... No, the Force Indias might have still got you, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was 7/10 clear of Ocon, and I thought, okay, that's probably enough, but you know how this game is with its track evolution.
Yeah.
But I honestly, a large part of me thought that Renault missed the trick by not keeping K-Mags. I mean, I'm glad to see Sainz and Hülkenberg together, but I think Magnussen and Hülkenberg would have been an equally interesting partnership.
See, now I don't, because I don't think Renault appreciate that kind of fighting spirit at the moment, and I think Hülkenberg, especially with "Suck My Balls" gate, that would have been interesting.
That would have gone down in the corporate world of Renault, would it? No, you're right.
Yeah, but that would have been even more interesting if they were teammates. That would have been like the ultimate. It's like Force India, but just much more angry. So yeah, it's interesting, and I guess as well, that point that you're saying about K-Mags, where you're saying, oh, it's a team that actually wants him, that's why I think Renault need to be careful with what they do with Sainz, whilst Sainz is not quite at Hulkenberg's level yet, to make sure that he still feels wanted long term, because otherwise he'll start overdriving and then front wings will be lost on lap ones and so on and so forth. So it's just it's a ongoing spiral.
It's going to rain this session.
Yeah, I'm going straight out.
You are absolutely correct. Red Bull do seem completely set on Verstappen as a long-term number one, no matter what he does. And we're going to talk about that when we get into the race, because Simon and I both have some fairly piquantly spicy opinions on that and on Verstappen in general. Continuing with quali, though, because we're on to Q3, we've barely touched it. Let's talk about McLaren. I still think a very anonymous showing again from Van Dorn. And sometimes the gap isn't particularly big, other times it's far bigger than I would consider acceptable. He just continues to completely underwhelm me. He's very anonymous as far as I'm concerned. If I had to describe him, I'd say he's Belgian.
I was not impressed with his race, but his quali was okay-ish. I think the big thing that we're going to have now is that where McLaren, especially in that kind of race, have got basically were sucked into the midfield battle, and it's going to be this problem that they're going to have, I think. And I think this will actually. I wasn't impressed with Van Dorn in China, but I think it's going to be symptomatic of the rest of the season, if it continues, is that Alonso will be in the points and Van Dorn will be just outside it, and that will be the issue, I think, going forward in the future. I had like a glitch of hard rain for a second, and now it's gone. And we're back
I think that's the game showing its hand early, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's spitting of rain on the back straight.
It's not raining where I am.
Where are you?
I don't know. I don't know this.
Are you in the long
well.
turn?
I'm a few corners ahead of you. I can see you on my mini map.
Right.
Oh, now it's raining. The rain has caught up with me. Okay, so this has to be a good lap. I've managed to warm my tyres for once. I actually had the tyre temperatures open. I was weaving and everything, like a proper driver. Interestingly, though, the lefts seem to cool a lot quicker than the rights, which I've never seen before. I don't know. I'm still not entirely sold on Van Dorn. And when I say, if I had to describe him, I would say Belgian. You know what I mean, right? It's because you're aware of Belgium, like you know it exists and stuff. But if you had to say what's good about it, you just have no idea.
Chocolate. But yeah, I do know what you mean. He needs to. I think the other thing he needs is a bit of on-track personality, because
yes,
I thought his race in Bahrain was exceptional, but it was only exceptional because he'd had to drop to last at the opening lap
to prove a point. Exactly.
Yeah, I can overtake. It's okay. But what else was I going to say? It will veer onto the race, but I'll save it. But you're not going to impress me when you're having to battle with Lance Stroll for position.
No. No, you're right.
But I am still a Van Dorn fan from his previous excursions in GP2.
Oh, I mean, I rate him from his junior career and everything, but we've seen it all too often that it's quite common for talent in the junior Formula League to not translate over. And we spoke about Van Dorn when he came into the sport, that he trained for a formula that no longer exists.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's that coming to bear fruit. I was not happy with that lap at all. At all.
The grip is gone already.
Yeah. The problem is, I don't know how we could have got out any quicker.
No, I don't think we could have. But I quite like that, because it's got a weird grid. We've both beat Raikkonen because he got stuck behind Ocon in front of me.
Yeah, but I'm not the fastest Mexican, and that upsets me. But you're right, the time in the track has gone. undoubtedly. Like the tyres are holding, but I'm a second down on myself. This track is so weird for me. My last lap in Q2, which I still wasn't happy with, I found a whole bunch of time in the third sector out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere. I don't even know where it came from. Wasn't even paying attention.
So I beat Vettel.
Oh, well, that's something. Where are you, mate?
I am sat in a Ferrari sandwich, so I'm 7th at the minute. I think that'll be where I stay.
Like Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the... Van Dorn's one of the drivers that you and I very rarely disagree on this level. I got a temperature warning there for a moment. But he is one of the drivers that splits us on opinion. I don't know if he's done enough to stay at McLaren. And I don't know quite why I have that opinion, because it's not like McLaren are a big team anymore. There's still something about saying I am a McLaren driver that carries some level of prestige, but I have no idea why that is.
So I know he was talking about it off air, that we were saying, oh, Alonso may be going because the car is clearly not up to the standard of what he is. What would you say if Lando Norris is coming in? Is it actually that Van Dorn is going to get the push and then Alonso stays around? For me, it doesn't make sense. But then,
no, but they've done it before.
Yeah.
They kick K-Mags out to keep two old men.
Yeah. And Perez,
which is usually a Ferrari thing to do. The weird thing is, like I said to you before we went live, the combination of Van Dorn and Norris doesn't excite me.
See,
and it should, because Norris is incredible. But first of all, part of the problem is I don't think that McLaren is worthy of Norris's talent. And I don't trust them to make a car that is. And Van Dorn has just been wallpaper paste for me since he started. He impressed me in his very first race where he did that cover for Button, was it? Nando's even. And he got points in his first Grand Prix.
Yeah.
But after that, everything has been sort of meh. And I don't want that to sound like a totally damning, scathing criticism, right? Because it's not that. If I was talking about him like he was crap, I mean, for one thing, at least that'd make him noteworthy and interesting in some way. You know, like if he was crashing like Maldonado, or he was the next Nissany or something, or Delatraz, then we'd have fun talking about him. We'd probably even have some affection for him.
Yeah.
But if you imagine there's like a performance spectrum, right, of what is a tolerable sort of position to put that car in, he's always at or around the very lowest end of that spectrum.
But I don't know if that spectrum is exceptionally increased or overbloated because of how good Alonso is. And I don't think we can answer how good is Van Dorn in Formula One until Alonso is not his teammate. Because I think...
Yeah, but I mean, Button beat Alonso.
But I was a huge fan of Button being underrated because he generally trounced most of his other teammates. The only one that he didn't trounce necessarily was Alonso, and they were side by side for quite a lot of it. But when you look at Alonso and the way how he's been with other teammates over the course of his season, when they then go and compare against other people, they've not then looked nearly so bad. I'm thinking Massa off the top of my head, Fisichella, Jensen. I dare even go back to say Tasso Marquez and Alex Young. But yeah, it's you've got. It's difficult, but I don't think we'll truly know how good or bad Van Dorn is until Alonso is gone and someone else is there to compare.
But do you not feel that's requiring the odds to be tipped in his favour somewhat?
No,
I mean, I get what you're saying, right? Alonso is really good, and so it's hard to have him as a barometer, and that is fair enough, right? But
I think if you're matching him half the time and just behind him the other half of the time, most of the grid would snap you up for being on that level.
great question, actually. How equal are those cars? I can imagine McLaren now comparable to an early case Ferrari. Barrichello never got the good upgrades at the same time. It's possible, but I mean, I don't know what would be in it for McLaren at this point.
Keeping Alonso.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not going to work, is it? I'd be willing to place a cash bet that that Alonso is gone at the end of this year, and I said that last year. Best parts on the best driver equals more points. Well, yeah, that is one way to look at it, but you probably stand to do better across a season by having both cars competitive. I don't think teams are served well by favouring one driver too much. I mean, I think Ferrari demonstrated that in China very, very nicely, actually. That their insistence on making sure the race goes Vettel's way as far as is possible almost did completely ruin Kimi's race until fate stepped in. So I've always, I mean, I do know it happens, but it just would seem odd to me, a team in McLaren's position doing it. Like if you have a car like Mercedes or Red Bull have done in the past that is just completely dominant, then you can start playing favourites with drivers. And now Ferrari are competitive. They always run a split strategy, don't they? They don't have very true, but they would favour a driver because they've got that gap behind them to do so. And Ferrari play this split strategy because they're going to be at the sharp end whatever happens, right? So put Kimi on one tyre strategy, put Vettel on the other, and you're covered in all cases, right? And if you give Vettel the one that's more obviously competitive, and you give Kimi the one that catches you if you fall. But more often than not, I would say that costs you more points than it gains you.
Yeah, because someone's always going to lose. Someone's always got an optimal strategy versus a non-optimal strategy. I think with McLaren, though, it's less around strategy and it's maybe more around who gets that newly upgraded part first out of the two. I don't think there'll be much of a difference, if there is any difference at all. But he's costing you like 15 times more amount of money. He's going to need to be kept sweet
to earn it.
That.
Yeah. But I mean, I did like the Grand Prix World comparison, but there's a different context there. Like, the reason I would do that in Grand Prix World is because I was skipping the races because the game was so unstable I couldn't do the pit wall stuff. So the only way to ensure that you get at least one car home in the points is to split your strategy, because you're not able to be there on the pit wall making the decisions that keep you competitive. If I was managing the race altogether, then I'd know from qualifying which tyres look best. Problem is you're locked in, actually. You make a good point. You do make a good point, because in that game you're locked in once you've picked which compound to take. What strategy do I want here?
I'm going for an interesting one.
Are you going to tell me what that is?
I'm going for multiple stops.
I'm going to do the same, actually, because I can get to 2 stints on the ultras just in time for the rain.
That's what I'm thinking, and I'm assuming that the rain will come later on in our actual 45 minutes. But if it does hit on the 45 minutes, it's going to be right at the end. I think. But yeah, I'm trying a few interesting things here.
Actually, I think that is the better strategy.
Ooh.
It's telling me it's slower. It's telling me it's significantly slower, but it's just not, because I have to change tyres then anyway. And it's saying it's slower because it's longer on the slower tyre, but I think it's... actually... You see, if I was outside the top 10, I'd put the softs on.
Yeah, we were a victim of our own speed.
Yeah, that's never happened before. We were victims of being competent.
I know, disgrace.
Okay then, shall we dive straight in?
Let's dive
in.
Talk
about all the hot, spicy topics from Racing Land.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Okay, so on the formation lap, I want to talk about Williams. We will tie in sort of quality and race, but it's a season to forget for them. I think that's fair to say.
Yep.
But I want to give a shout out
isn't it?
Yeah. But I want to give a shout out to Lance Stroll. Because did you see his opening lap?
Yeah, up 6 positions. The onboard on the F1 channel was pretty nice. Good avoiding action.
Yeah, I thought that was a hell of an opening gambit from him. I mean, obviously the car didn't have the legs to carry it off, but still impressive. Last point on McLaren: this team is in dire need of sponsorship. Yes, it is. 10th and 18th, 10th and 18th sounds better than 12th and 13th. I can see what you're saying, but I don't know if I'd necessarily agree. Depends how long it goes on for. Because to me, like, anything becomes normal after a period of time, and you forget about the individual circumstances of each race. And if you're 5 races into the season or whatever, and that sort of gap is there all the time, then I think by the nature of the sport, you have to start saying, what the hell is the guy coming in 18th doing? Because you never sort of... And I think this is why Simon made the point he made, actually, that Alonso's kind of a special case. Because when there's a big disparity between 2 drivers, you never question the lead driver. You always question the guy who's not competing. You never say, "Oh, why is that guy so far ahead of his teammate?" You say, "Why is the other guy so far behind?" And that's where I'm coming from. But Simon's point is, well, usually the guy in front isn't Fernando Alonso, which is a fair point.
Who has a history of forming a team around him and making sure that politically he is the person that is looked after. And that is the other thing that I'd say as well, is that I don't know of anyone else, perhaps Vettel and Hamilton, and Max will end up being that way, which is why I think Ricciardo wants out, where you can command a team that will work around you and you will have second dibs on exactly what's going on the other side of the garage, to the detriment of the other side, even though it's in view of team harmony and all that bollocks. But yeah, I agree. Lance Stroll, great opening lap. Sergei Sorokin was on the pace, which was good, as he was in Bahrain. Sergei Sorokin, though, needs to work out how to make tyres last, because it's at the end of his race, so you can see him dropping off, and then Stroll gets ahead again, and then you think, So hopefully Sergei... because the pace in him is faster than Stroll at the moment. Like, just... I'm going to shush.
Yeah, me too. Scary. Oh, I can't see a good line through.
I can.
No, run wide. Oh, you got away very nicely there, mate. And now I've got a Ferrari alongside. Oh, fuck. I've completely ballsed my first lap, but it's okay. The main thing was I wanted to get out of it with my front wing, and I know when the AI's alongside you, they just don't back out, even if you end up with the better line. So I thought it's better to let Vettel have the position and then just fight him for it later.
Good shout. Good shout. But yeah, so...
I did a Verstappen overtake there.
Uh-oh. Does that mean everyone's facing the wrong way? Is it MLG?
No, I actually made it. I made it stick.
Oh, that's a Ricciardo overtake, not a Max.
Yeah,
overtake.
sorry, it's not a Verstappen, is it? It's called a Ricciardo when you make a brave overtake and it works and no one dies.
Exactly.
I think Raikkonen's just got too much pace for me though. I keep getting past him and then I lose the speed on corner exit and he's just gone.
Hello, Chimpy. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, so let's...
while we're on Sorokin, though,
yeah.
Do you think he's going to get a fair hearing in that Williams?
No.
Not just because people are biased against him because of what happened with Kubica and everything, but I'm talking in terms of can they get that car in the next year or two into a position where he can actually show his level of skill in a way that we can fairly judge him? Because a bit like the Force Indias in general, I don't feel like I can comment on him too much because he just gets no airtime. So I haven't seen him drive.
No, I agree. I think it's interesting. I was listening to Paddy Lowe talk about that Williams car, and he says actually, yes, it is dire, but in terms of time delta, it's not as bad as the results necessarily reflect, and because of just how tight the midfield is. And so I kind of thought, I can see where you're coming from.
God damn it.
But
I've lost part of my front wing.
no.
Raikkonen came back onto the racing line as I was braking into the corner and just took it off. It was my own fault. I was too aggressive.
But yeah, I think for me, if they can work out how to get that car to correlate, then Williams will be properly back in the midfield, as opposed to having to do those strolly do or die laps. But they remind me very much of like an old school Toro Rosso, like 10 years ago. And like Midland and when Force India were at the back of the field, where you have to, it's going to be those Stroll-like opening laps where suddenly he's up in 12th and then bends it sliding back down again, that makes everyone go, oh, Stroll's not so bad. And if Sirotkin can't do that as well, then people will forget about Sirotkin very, very quickly. And I'm very bored of YouTube. Every day at the moment keeps recommending me a video where any number of drivers are in a thumbnail saying these two should have replaced Stroll and Sergei Sirotkin. So I'm getting a bit bored of it. So yeah, I feel sorry for the guy. Plus, when he talks, he sounds like he's permanently stoned, which I don't think necessarily helps you.
No, it doesn't help, does it? Raikkonen took my front wing off and is now benefiting from it massively because I can't hold on in the corners, so I'm losing all my time to him.
Oh, okay, Chimpy's got the same suggested videos coming up.
I'm not sure now if I should stop, put on fresh ultras and a new front nose, or switch to softs, actually. Oh, actually, that's a good idea. Maybe I switch to softs, because I just think over the course of the stint, I'm going to lose so much time, mainly to you, but also Raikkonen, with this wing damage, that it might be better to pit early. Problem is, I'm going to be on 2 compounds harder, which is going to cost me time as well.
How long until the rain? Weather forecast.
We don't currently have
Oh,
data for
no. That's not what I asked, Jeff, you little shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna box this lap.
Weather report.
radar is clear.
Radar is clear, so nothing's happening for at least 20 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch to the softs and hope that it pays off later.
Interesting.
Because this front wing damage is costing me so much time. I'm having to cut corners as well. I'm going to get a penalty. I should have come in. I shouldn't have questioned myself because I'm losing even more time now. Yeah, I know, Jeff. I know corner cutting is frowned upon amongst your people, but I had no options. It was either that or die.
Boo. So yeah, let's dive onto the race because we're a couple of laps into ours. Can we talk about the fortunes of a Red Bull overtake? And,
yes.
And the pin knife distance that there is between hero and zero, and what fundamentally is a good overtake rather than a poor attempt of an overtake, between knowing who and where you should overtake on and with. Max versus Danny Rick. Discuss!
Well, I mean, this is what... The thing is, like, it always annoys me because this is stuff that we've been criticising Verstappen for ages and no one's been listening.
Nope.
And then now it's the talk of the town, and all the major F1 outlets are talking about it. And even Helmut Marko and Christian Horner are saying, well, a mature Max would be better. And the weird thing is, like, Brundle and Crofty wouldn't even criticise him.
No, I know.
Which baffled me. And it's like, oh, you don't want to. He's very exciting. You don't want to lose this. You don't want to lose this. And I was like, I think I could do without it, to be honest, if I was in charge at Red Bull.
Yeah.
It's just this impatience that seems to dog him, and it's interesting that it took this race in particular, even though it's been happening for quite some time. It's funny that because he had two major incidents in one Grand Prix, suddenly people are asking the question, is he as good as we always said he was? Which he's never been questioned like that before. And I'm keen to see how he responds in the next Grand Prix. Because he's apologised for stuff before, not very often, and then gone on to show that he hasn't learned his lesson. And I don't know if this time, now the team is actually not criticising him, but at least questioning his methods. I wonder if this time he's actually going to change something, because this is why, and I said on Twitter at the time, this is why you and I have been saying for years, as long as the two have been a pair, that we both believe Daniel Ricciardo is the superior driver at Red Bull.
Yeah.
And people always take that the wrong way and get very upset and say, you know, well, look how fast Verstappen is. You know, look how fast Verstappen is. It's like, yeah, but since when has being fast actually won a race? It's not just about being fast alone. It's about racecraft and having, you know, your eye in and being able to get the best out of. Yes, exactly. How fast Verstappen can be, with the emphasis on can. Yeah, I completely agree. Because this is what really annoys me. Because, you know, people always take it the wrong way. When I say that Ricciardo is right now the superior Red Bull driver, people get super offended and say that's outrageous. Verstappen's on a totally different level. I say he could be.
Yeah.
He could be. He could be one of the best drivers of if not the best driver of a generation.
But it's
Like,
petulance
I don't want.
that stops him.
Yeah, exactly. It's petulance and immaturity and arrogance that stop him.
Which is a symptom of everyone going for the hottest fetus around, I think, when it comes into Grand Prix racing. And Chimpy's just popped into the chat. Sorry, I'll turn up the volume of the lady on my phone in a bit. But he says Verstappen needs to demonstrate being perfect again. Because it's true. It just won't kind of... It gets tarred, and this reminds me of when he kept on clashing with Raikkonen, and there was a little mini flashback there, and then he was quiet for a couple of races, and now he's built himself back up into this "see you fucking later, son," which is just it smacks of Hamilton in Australia, where he was like, come on guys, I'm going to go and do it, and then he goes straight off at the next corner, and I just think, humble fucking pie. And yeah, so there was something for me about believing your own hype and getting so sucked into it that actually it causes you problems.
Getting some great comments on this, by the way. You don't see the greats do silly stuff in their third season, and I think that's actually quite an astute observation.
Fourth season now.
Yeah, and actually, that brings me back. I was talking about this in the pre-episode. I had a few Twitter exchanges about Verstappen. And
you do love a Twitter exchange.
I do. I can get quite angry, though, and I keep telling myself, stop doing it, because like it reflects badly on you, and it reflects badly on the podcast and everything, but I can't help getting annoyed sometimes. And the weird thing is, like, in person, I'm not an angry person at all. I never get angry, but something about the internet makes me furious. But I think it was... I want to give credit where it's due. Megan Cantle, I think her name was. And she was saying, I don't know why people are being so hard on Max, because if you look at Brazil 2015, was it? And USA last year and stuff like that, and she was listing these races.
Yeah.
And I pointed out that, well, what you're saying is on average he has one good race a season, and I don't think that's a very good hit rate. Like, I know the point you're making. Like, he has had some incredible standout races, but you know what? So have lots of other drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Pit window is open. The pit window is open.
And I don't think a hit rate of 1 in 20 is that's a 2% return. I mean, it's no good.
Yeah, he's got a better hit rate of cars into himself for an overtake.
But I mean, getting back on topic a little bit, this is the thing though, isn't it? That Ricciardo has the same killer instinct.
Yes, but it's
just he knows when to use it.
He knows when to use it, and importantly, who to use it on. If he'd have done that same move on Bottas as he'd have done maybe on perhaps Lewis, perhaps Vettel, they're petulant enough or aggressive enough, I think, to not give the racing room. Whereas he knows with a Kimi and a Bottas, they think about bringing that car across the line, and that's the difference. Because you know who to go up against and how far to press that button. Because actually, the difference between a Ricciardo and a Max overtake isn't that much different, and it's such a fine line between hero and zero. But yeah, Ricciardo has that instinct of knowing exactly what is a hero and a zero, and when to go for it. For me,
I'm trying to think now, and maybe you or chat has an example, but I can't think of one, of a time where a brave Ricciardo overtake has gone wrong.
I can't. I was just thinking the same thing myself.
Clear exit on the rejoin. Clear exit.
Because yeah, I can't think of an example where he's gone in for an overtake and completely fluffed it. I've seen him take people from super far back, like really late braking, very brave calls, but I've never seen it like totally backfire, which I find interesting. Oh, I knew you were going to do that, Merrickson. You've definitely got me in this race, mate. By the way, being on softs has made me rather slow, and people have come out of the pits way ahead of me, including you.
That's P6. You've moved up to P6.
Right, there's some comments that I've been struggling to read. Let's see if I can manage it once I get out of some corners here.
Chimpy says Ricciardo's had more time. I was going to say, Chimpy says he's had more time in the sport, Ricciardo. I think by season 4, that is no longer an excuse, personally. And Pom68 says, what are our favourite F1 teams? Which we can answer once we've got through the race.
Yeah, because we love talking about that.
Yeah.
And we will definitely answer that question, because any chance I have to evangelise for the teams I love, I will take it. In the old days with the terrible reliability on average, he would have got away with it, but now consistency is key. Very, very true.
Yeah.
The sport is about consistency, and I think that's what turns a lot of younger fans off, actually, because you still see the same complaints about Formula 1, that it's boring, and you think, well, clearly you don't understand how the sport works, because it's not a sprint race. But yeah, Ricciardo is just world class, and I think what bothers me about him though is that quite often he just doesn't have the pace that Max has, and while his consistency generally comes to bear a better result by the end of the race, it's still a shame, because I'd like to see him in front of Max more often on merit rather than Max fucking something up. Incidentally though, speaking of Ricciardo, if you go to WTF1, they have got a commemorative t-shirt of Danny Rick's face on a stamp with the quote, "Sometimes you just have to lick the stamp and send it," which is one of my all-time favourite quotes, actually. I thought that was a brilliant analogy about overtaking.
Yeah. I loved that. And was it you? Oh no, it wasn't you. It was a sim racer friend of mine, Nick Rowland, who says, "I have actually bought this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Interestingly, Perez has gone onto the softs.
So's Raikkonen.
So yeah, I agree. I think if but also reliability was a problem for them last year as well, actually, come to think of it. But let me ask everyone here a question. Because what I wanted to talk about in qualifying, but I decided to save it, was Helmut Marko and Christian Horner's reactions to Daniel's win. Because, to be fair to them, both of them were a little bit more critical of Max than they've been historically, but still not exactly... I still wouldn't even use the term critical, to be honest. More sort of questioning. But they looked happy in a very empty sort of way. And I remember seeing them looking up at Daniel on the podium, and they were sort of smiley and clappy, but you know when a smile just looks inauthentic?
Yeah.
And at the time I was thinking, that is the face of a man who's realised he's committed long term to a driver that is consistently failing to bring home the points. Because every time Daniel wins or does well, or significantly outperforms Max, that's got to be a knife in his back, hasn't it, a little bit? That's got to niggle at him as team manager.
And it also brings up the price for Ricciardo for signing, which obviously, even if he does stay at Red Bull, which I think is unlikely, is going to raise up the price of keeping him about. And it also continues to parade him in front of all of the rivals, who that kind of dive bomb overtake will no longer be loved when it's coming towards them on another team. And I'd also argue that they're sitting there thinking, how on earth are we going to replace that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because the general thought is that they'll stick signs in there.
Yeah.
But then I think they've committed to Verstappen long term, and then they've got Gasly, right? And Gasly obviously didn't cover himself in glory in China, but I think his drive in Bahrain shows that with another season or two, I think he's going to be something special in Formula One. He was something special, in his junior formulae. But I think it's generally considered smart to give drivers a year or two in a smaller team before you bump them up. It's just, smart. But by bringing Sainz back, do you kind of lock that door for Gasly, and does Gasly become the new Sainz? It's all very interesting to me, because I part of me thinks the Gasly versus Verstappen battle could be quite interesting, but we already know that Sainz versus Verstappen is very spicy. Although Sainz would just be de facto number 2, and I don't think there's any debate about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not changing strategy, Jeff. I know you're going to try and make me pit, but I'm not going to pit because the weather is going to change. But then, riddle me this. Ricciardo moves. They don't take their option on Sainz. Promote Gasly to Red Bull, and then you've got Toro Rosso with just Brendan Hartley. I mean, what on earth do you do there?
Yeah.
And here's my real question that I've been faffing around and not really asking. What are you thinking right now if you're Christian Horner, and what do you do at this point? I mean, are you going to wheel out the checkbook and do whatever you can to keep Daniel Ricciardo, or are you confident enough in your somewhat depleted young driver stock to let him go? Because I don't think I'd be brave enough to let him go at this point, because look at the last few seasons where they've been teammates, Ricciardo and Verstappen. And which one of the two would you want in your car?
Ricciardo, without a doubt.
Exactly. I mean, that was a rhetorical question. I didn't even expect you to give me an answer because it was so obvious. And so you have to be thinking now, well, we're losing the one consistent driver we have, and after 4 years in the sport, the other driver is just not stepping up. I'd be bricking it a little bit.
I would be going out of my way to try and keep him, but that I think is why the pained smiles are, oh dear, this is going to cost us another X amount of money.
I got a 3-second time penalty there, and it was completely deserved. My finger slipped off the steering, and the car just went straight on. So fair enough, Charlie. Fair enough. I'm still pleased with this drive, actually, because I've recovered to 6th, and I think I can get past Vettel.
I can't shake Kimi Raikkonen off, and he's on softs. I'm on ultras, so softs aren't bad if you can get them to work.
They seem to be working nicely for me, although the first few laps they were very slow. But Raikkonen's been on fire this round. I was in a really rough fight with him for the first few laps. He's on it, but yeah, I'm faster than Vettel at the moment, and he's on ultras. Good comment again. This line of thinking will require Red Bull to look at Max critically, and I don't think they're there yet. No, I agree with you.
No.
The fact that was it in Bahrain, Verstappen was out in quali, and you saw him in the back talking to Helmut Marko, and there was no tension in there at all. Like normally, Marko's looking for any excuse to fire someone, but apparently Max is bulletproof. He's just Teflon in that team, and I think that is a terribly short-sighted thing to do. I know why they did it as well, because obviously he is prodigious. He's an amazing talent, and they were so scared to lose him that they moved quickly and decisively to lock him in.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I think it's a bad move for both parties, because I think Max needs to be questioned and challenged, or else he's never going to learn.
Yep.
I think Red Bull need to be able to be tough on their drivers, and I think Max is going to suffer from the Red Bull Honda era that feels almost inevitable.
And then he'll be petulant, and then he'll leave anyway, without having fulfilled his potential overall, or anything else. But yeah, it's. I know we're always trading in what ifs and so on and so forth, but I feel like he is going to be the next Jean Alesi, where I mean
lots of promise and no delivery.
Yeah. And there is a real potential, especially if Honda can't get it together and Red Bull gets stuck like that, because what would be Red Bull is a marketing campaign. It is only there for whilst it is worthwhile them winning and being competitive and making money and showing brand awareness. If Honda trout that out, Red Bull goes down the pan. Verstappen will have lost years of his career like Alonso has at McLaren alongside with it. And then what do you do? Because then by that point he's no longer fetus, because we'd have had several years of fetus people popping in. Lando Norris will have been more than the next thing. Then there'd be talk about maybe George Russell or other people popping in as well. Felix Rosenqvist, if he ends up in Formula One, since he drives everything else.
And he should, if there's any justice.
Yeah. So, like, how long can he be the hot topic where he's still considered untouchable and uncriticisable? So, yeah, interesting. Yep, Charles Leclerc, once he sorts out being able to actually keep it on the road.
I wanted to talk about Charles Leclerc as part of this discussion, because we seem to have fallen into the driver roundabout carousel trap again, which we do many episodes, but I think it is pertinent here.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of people were saying, well, Kimi will retire, and the door has been slammed in the face of people like Perez because Leclerc is so good, they'll just move him up. And you and I were saying at the time that Ferrari don't take young drivers, but we questioned with Leclerc that maybe they would.
Yeah.
But I think, and I don't want to smash Leclerc, because I do think he's going to come good and be a big name in the sport. But I think he's an excellent example of why even the highest talents need a few years in a small team, and I don't think Ferrari will take him.
I agree based on the opening 3 rounds. There is some pace there, but even Charles is saying, like, I'm having still to learn to drive in this formula. It is different to what I have learned on my way up. Again, going back to you train for a formula that doesn't actually exist. Because Formula 2 is only really kind of turning into what Formula 1 is now. He was kind of the last one of that pre-era going in. So you kind of think, okay, that makes sense. Then, what else was I going to say? He's overdriving the car. He's still learning himself. Kimi, it's almost like it's almost like he's gone, shit, I've got to do it this year. And he is. And so if you're looking at the same again, actually, even though I would say, yeah, Kimi, it's his last year, at the moment, and I can feel my inner self sighing at the thought of it. But I would have re-signed Kimi for 2019 at Ferrari currently than put Leclerc in.
See, now you make an interesting point, and it's come up in chat the exact same thing I was thinking, that Ferrari should just get Ricciardo in, which I wanted to bring up. So you've preempted me.
That's what I think will happen.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say they see Ricciardo going to Mercedes, but I don't actually.
No, I don't. That is a culture and personality clash that is waiting to explode if that was to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think actually Ferrari is the better place for him to be, and I think that his performance in the last race alone would have done wonders to open that door that Sebastian Vettel is desperately trying to wedge shut. Mm-hmm. And he is the perfect Ferrari driver. He's the right age. You know, like that's the age that you become a Ferrari driver, usually.
Yeah.
Have you stopped again?
Yeah, that's me onto super softs to the end.
I was going to say, because how did I catch you? You were miles ahead.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about Raikkonen because it seems to me like he's driving like he wants to be there next year. And I'm thinking, you're 39, man. It's time to go. Like, and I think he should go out on a high. I think it is time to go. I as much as I love him, and the thing is, he's been driving so well that I find it hard to say that he should be forced out. But I'm kind of hoping that this is him doing his swan song rather than him driving for his seat.
I get what you mean. I'd rather him go out on a high. I feel like this is the type of season that I've been wanting for him since 2014.
Yes.
And it's been so frustrating watching him not do that. You saw flashes of it last year, which is all fine. But I think what this year will show, if he continues it going on, is go out on a high, but also on a very pointed note with Ferrari to say, you didn't give me the proper shot that I deserved. Thanks. Bye. Because then it's him leaving on his terms, not Ferrari saying toodles.
Problem is, I don't think Ferrari will let him win a race. I think, and it surprises me to say it because I always hate conspiracy theories as well. But with Ferrari, I don't think it is a conspiracy theory. I think it's just obvious. I think they wear it on their sleeve. They go to bizarre lengths to make sure that he doesn't get ahead of Vettel.
Yeah, because they use him as the blocking game. I mean, talking about what they'd done in China, he was busy battling around for a podium, left him out intentionally so that he could block other people so that Vettel could stay ahead, even though he was okay-ish and busy battling with Brotas anyway. That wasn't Kimi's right. Ah, fuck, now's the rain.
That's why I didn't pit.
I thought
my tyres are like 46-47%. I think I can get another 2-3 laps out of them with some reasonable pace, and then boom, onto the Inters, baby. And then suddenly my stupid strategy comes good.
I was hoping.
I tell you who I feel
Yeah, go for it.
I tell you who I feel sorry for in all this though, Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
Because he always seemed to be the heir apparent at Ferrari, in my mind. And Grosjean, we know he went to Haas with the promise that it would be a door into Ferrari. I don't think Grosjean deserves that shot anymore, but Perez, I think he's still got so much to give.
Yeah.
And it just feels like his career is about to go out like a damp firework. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say something. This is a complete tangent. I don't know why this is coming to my mind, but I watched Channel 4's coverage of China, and David Coulthard used our constant analogy of Frentzen.
Oh, really?
He was talking about Carlos Sainz, and he was saying, I hope he's not a Frentzen. Because he was someone who would drive amazingly in the midfield, but then when he got a big shot at a works team, he just flopped.
That's exactly what Chimpy's just put in the chat as well. Is Sergio Perez that perfect example of a midfield driver who excels but can't handle the big time? So.
I think he can handle the big time. I think
he can now.
I think McLaren, it was a case of timing. And actually, that is what I meant, even though I didn't say it correctly. But yeah, heir apparent in the sense that he was the right guy for the job until someone like Leclerc came along. It's not that I saw Perez as a potential leader at Ferrari. it seemed like a good fit. But yeah, getting back onto it, it's such an interesting season this year because of how things pan out next year. Because you're going to have, we presume, a seat open at Red Bull, a seat open at Mercedes, seat open at Ferrari, possibly a seat open at Renault, and you have to say that's a hot ride.
That's an ascendancy.
Because talking of Renault quickly, they claim to have a update package, and they say the numbers they get in testing, like wind tunnel numbers and so on, the advantage they gain is bigger than the gap to the front.
Ooh.
Now they say obviously other teams won't stand still, but the upgrade package they have planned for the European season is worth more time than the gap to the front.
Nice.
No, Jeff, I'm staying out.
Chimpy says Perez to Red Bull. I think no.
I have to say I would love to see it, but yeah, I would have to go with unlikely. I think because their prestige is tied so tightly to their driver development program.
Yeah.
I think you're going to stay ahead of me simply because my tyres are getting worn now, and you're going to be in the pits before me, and we're going to double box.
Oh yeah, a proper Red Bull double shuffle.
Yeah, which I wanted to talk about. We've come into this race review and not reviewed the bloody race.
I know, it's been a bit...
But yeah, I wanted to give a hat tip to that because that to me is impressive, and I have to say one of my favourite bits about a Formula 1 race, and this is not to shit on the racing or anything, is I love watching detail shots of the pit stops because they never fail to impress me.
Yeah.
And particularly double stops, that's when you really see how impressive it is. Interestingly, the Williams pit stops, they have a guy at the back of the car who has like a Jimmy cloth, and he wipes the rear wing. That's his job, he just dusts the rear wing.
Amazing.
But seeing it all in perfect sync, I love it. Jeff has just told me that it's not the right time to change tyres, but I can't tell if the lack of grip I'm getting now is my tyres being at 55% or if it is actually the track changing.
I'm sliding around like a bitch, but I still feel like I'd be quicker on dries.
Yeah, probably. I got the feeling though it's going to change. Like, you know, the switch flicks.
Yeah.
It's going to do that halfway around this lap.
Yeah.
Let's make sure they don't put the. No, I don't want I don't want super softs. No. Right. I think I'm going to pit actually, this lap.
Okay.
Are you pitting this lap?
Not at the moment.
I don't know. It feels like a brave call, but it just switches.
It's a long lap.
I know these conditions are tough, but
Yeah.
I don't think the track is ready for intermediates yet.
Jess just said
You're
not
10 and a
no.
half seconds clear of me now. I feel like I can't talk as well because it's taking so much brain power to keep the car somewhat
That's
competitive.
true. I tell you what we do need to talk about is that beautiful Toro Rosso safety car moment.
Yes, and the number of people who still have the conspiracy theory that they did it on purpose.
Yeah, because it was all
they did not do it on purpose.
No, namely because of how much those wings and stuff cost. But what I found interesting was that was a miscommunication around letting each other through, and that they'd already done the same thing at the beginning of the race, and Brendan had done it at the beginning of exiting out of that corner. So quite why Gasly thought that it would be any different this time round, I don't know. So yeah, proper miscommunication.
I lay it all on Gasly though.
I do.
I know what everyone's thinking. You said you were going to pit and then you didn't, but...
I was just looking at that.
Yeah, but parts of the lap still feel okay, and the thing is, like, I'm trying not to let the AI decide, right? Because what I've noticed with this game is if you have to stop too close to the end of the Grand Prix, the AI just don't do it. Oh
No,
yeah,
you
now
mean.
it's time.
Yeah, this is.
Plus, also my tyres have reached 60%. I was just wondering, could I do an old school Perez and make these tyres last another 6 laps? But no, I'm losing so much time to you now.
That
Thing is, I've got
far
enough
off.
of a gap. I've got enough of a gap behind me that I could probably hold this position if I could believe the tyres wouldn't delaminate and explode. But I think they will. So I'm pitting this lap, and I'm going to switch to the inters because I know the AI. Even though the inters are faster, they won't change if the pit stop is too close to the end of the Grand Prix. And you can actually gain a lot of places by being on the right tyre. Speaking though of being forced to change positions, it was quite interesting to see on lap 6 Haas telling Grosjean to get out of Magnussen's way. I think that tells you everything you need to know.
Sorry, say that again?
On lap 6, Romain Grosjean ordered to move out of the way of Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah.
And he was like, come on, sacre bleu, it's lap 6.
To first place is 19.4 seconds.
Yeah, I found that quite interesting, especially because Kevin Magnussen was on slower tyres.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show the performance disparity between the two of them.
Yeah.
So this could cost me all my points,
I don't think
or
it
it
will.
could be an
because
inspired move.
I think it's inspired because I can barely get round Sector 1. In fact, I've gone
But I've lost 1 position, possibly 2, from stopping. So I had a big gap. It turns out I was a smart boy switching onto those softs early because I think the time I would have lost with that damaged rear wing. Yeah, he's just told me it's going to transition to heavy rain, so it must be Inter's. Yeah, it is Inter's weather. It is Inter's weather. Changing was smart.
The car suits came
Pitting
out
this
more.
lap then. Come into the pits at the end of this lap.
Yeah, let's actually review this race now. The 5 laps left. Bottas, I felt a little bit sorry for. 100th Grand Prix. Could have done nicely with a win, that boy.
Yeah, the undercut worked nicely, didn't it?
Yeah, I was quite impressed.
0.4 seconds.
However, it was not to be. Partly because of the safety car, which I think that safety car taught us a lot. Simply how complacent the front 2 teams are. And I was genuinely astonished that they were both so slow to react. They handed Red Bull the win, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know Ferrari compromised Kimi Raikkonen just on principle because Kimi Raikkonen cannot be allowed to be competitive. But I was very surprised continually that Mercedes didn't pit either of their guys under the safety car.
Especially Hamilton, because Hamilton was in between the Red Bulls, and so when one goes in, I'd have just followed the other one in and shouted on the radio, because that was only a "we're going to lose" situation,
Yes.
Complete. Go now.
in my opinion.
People
AI
are
are
pitting.
pitting. So
You still got to come out ahead of me though, because I fluffed the corner and you were 10 seconds clear of me anyway.
I had a horrible lap, but you'll get Vettel.
Yeah, I have.
So-
this is scary.
So
This is scary. Sorry, go on.
Bottas and everyone in front of us are still on dries.
That means you might even win the race.
I doubt it.
Assuming
I'm
they don't-
driving like a twat.
I keep forgetting though that the track is wet, so I'm not driving my best either. Because normally I'm quite good, particularly on the inters.
I'm not. You're a better wet driver than me.
I've gained 3 seconds on you.
That sounds about right.
But yeah, you drove a storming race, mate. You had my number from the off. I was too scared on the first lap. That's what really damaged me. I gave up a whole bunch of positions because I was shit scared of crashing out, and I never recovered. but yeah, let's actually stay on topic. I'm just saying it was scary because I don't remember a season before where my strategy calls have ever gone right. I felt sorry for Bottas. I felt he deserved the win. I felt sorry for Raikkonen because I thought he drove a good race. I want to talk about Vettel's move on the opening lap because I thought that was disgraceful.
What, the chop across?
Yeah, like against a rival team, sure, but against your teammate, it's just a very selfish move. And I don't know why he did it because Ferrari would only have made sure that Kimi got out of his way one way or another. They really don't need to be racing each other at this point. Like, if he'd done that on Hamilton, fair enough, right?
Yeah.
Or he'd done it on Verstappen, fine. But he did it on his teammate, and I guess it just goes to show what we've always said, that Ferrari don't care about the Constructors' Championship and never have. They've always been a Drivers' Championship team, and which kind of makes sense because they make a lot of money out of the sport anyway, and Drivers' Championship is the one people talk about. I've spoken with people who can quite often tell you who won the Drivers' Championship in a certain year, but have no idea who won the Constructors.
That's true. Chimpy doesn't agree with you in the chat. He says it's called defending.
Yes, it is, but it's unnecessary between teammates.
I do think that corner is very
back.
harsh as well.
I take that back. It's not unnecessary between teammates. It's unnecessary between Vettel and Raikkonen.
Because it was never a battle he was going to have anyway.
Exactly, because Ferrari would always have either told him to get out of the way or they would have put him on a pit strategy that made him get out of the way. Right?
Yeah.
And then he would have just been behind Vettel and he would have got the maximum number of points possible without getting in the way of Vettel. What happened there was that he lost a whole bunch of places, and if it wasn't for the safety car, also a whole bunch of points.
Yeah.
And there was no need to lose those points.
Interesting. No, I agree. I think it didn't set them up particularly well. And again, continues to show Vettel is just as stroppy as probably Max and Hamilton. It's like the little Mardy trio, isn't it?
It is. It really is. I don't wish to raise any alarm here, but we might be heading for a last lap race.
I think
because I am catching you.
I'm having to do fuel mix 1, that's why.
Oh, I haven't even checked. Oh, shit. I hadn't even looked. Yeah, I'm half a lap down on fuel, so I have to go... Shit, I might run out of fuel. I didn't even look.
I'm glad I said that there.
Oh, shit. I'm going to fail to finish.
I tell you what, lift and coast all the way through Sector 1. You'll get most of that back if you're on Fuel Mixture 1.
Actually, all it does is I lose downforce. It makes me... That was a trick, wasn't it?
No, it's how I've got mine back.
We have 2 laps of fuel remaining.
But
I don't know. Generally, I'm so good on my fuel that I don't even have to think about it.
No, this is one of, I think, 2 circuits where I run negative on fuel. And I think it's because we are taking slightly different lines around some of the corners than the AI, because the AI lift quite a bit round some of the sectors and we don't, which is why we're competitive for Haas's.
I'm allergic to lifting and coasting. It's the sign of weakness.
Boo.
Rainfall to increase within the next couple of minutes.
What else did I want to talk about before we get to the end of this? It's about the Chinese race.
Actually, I'm quite good on fuel when I try. I've gained quarter of a lap back on one lap, so I should just about finish with enough fuel. It does mean though that I can't race you.
I am okay with this.
It's so rare we actually race each other. It's always exciting when it happens, but the podcast just dies because we're terrified of looking stupid. I mean, we look stupid all the time, but it's a special kind of stupid when you take your teammate off.
That is true.
I don't know. I might still be coming for you, sir.
I think you're still coming for me, to be honest. I've got such an aggressive, dry setup. I am struggling.
Any final comments about the race that we haven't reviewed?
What was I going to say? Hats off to Hulkenberg for a strong job. Also for Alonso with the safety car and getting up into the points again in what did not look like a good race for McLaren. And also... oh, God. I've totally forgotten what I was going to say, and we said it earlier on that I was going to come back to it.
Oh, Helmut Marko. I've already said it. It's fine. I already said my bit. But thank you for having my back.
You are welcome.
And your reminder to remind me reminded me of what I reminded of you to remind me of, so it worked.
Excellent.
It's the inception of reminders.
So yeah,
I just want to say we would be racing at this very moment if I hadn't have fluffed one of my corner exits, because I had you, much like Darth Vader had Luke Skywalker.
There's only one lap of fuel remaining.
I just need you to make one fluff. That's all I need.
there you go.
Have you just done it?
A little bit.
You're faster than me through that long corner though, by some noticeable margin, so your line is definitely better.
I can't do that corner.
I might be able to crank my fuel up by the end of this lap.
It's the last lap.
Oh, tension building.
Attention. Tension building.
Mind the gap. Mind the fuel gap. Have you turned your fuel up?
No.
Was that a lie?
I've been flicking between standard and part 1, depending on where I am. It's this. So when we're talking about corners that I can't do, it's that one.
Yeah, I just fluffed it as well. We've caught the car in front.
No, it's a Williams that's blapped.
Oh!
Oh!
That was my fault, to be honest. It was a brave move. I thought you'd gone far too wide and I could sneak down the middle, but alas not. I might still get you though. Actual racing on this podcast for the first time since Japan 2014. We are actually racing one another.
Oh, we had a little bit in Japan, didn't we, last time round? I thought I could see the arrow going for it, but no. Ah, squiggly from you.
Yeah, that saved you. That saved you. You could get on the podium, all things going well.
No, that's Brotas. Not Brotas, that's a Williams up ahead that we've lapped.
I had a go. It didn't come off. Yeah, you've got better traction than me. Damn it.
Whew.
I think that is the closest we've ever finished, though.
Probably.
We were nose to tail over the line there. I'd quite like to see the replay.
Do you have a time penalty as well?
I've got a 3-second time penalty, actually. Yeah, you're right. So I wouldn't have even gained.
Oh, it's dry on the podium.
Nice job, Co-Masters. I think that I was definitely fast enough to hold on to 5th, though. Even with the time penalty.
Yeah.
I dipped on Vettel. I have to say that's one of my good. That's one of my good races this year. Oh no, Vettel got ahead of me actually.
Damn it!
Wow, you're fastest. Oh, because I was on softs. That's why my fast laps weren't fast.
I know. I think. Did I get fastest lap of the race? Yes, I did. Woo!
Yes, you did. You were the fastest man.
Speed. Good recovery.
Okay, well, I can deal with that because I mean that was a close finish. I almost had you twice. I was so close. That I have to say though, aside from the time penalty, which I thoroughly deserved, that's been one of my best races for a while. Simply because I'm proud of coming back from last to fifth.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your replay, actually.
I made a lot of fluffs. Yeah, I actually, when I watch these podcasts back, I always watch yours rather than my own.
Yeah.
Because I like to see what you're doing that I'm not. It's since we started
Cutting
doing
corners.
the dual broadcast. Yeah, since we started doing the dual broadcast, though, it's interesting because you can actually see the differences in how we drive. So, where are we in standings now? You've closed the gap to me a little bit.
Yeah. 18 points between us.
So it's still all to play for in the battle of the arseholes.
It is. We're free to go. Yep.
And we're third in the constructors still by some way.
We are.
Dicked on Red Bull.
I don't know what happened with Red Bull, but because Max is only 9th in the championship, Ricciardo's only just got past Perez, so clearly they've had a shocking time.
I don't think realistically we can. Well, we can't lose that position, can we?
No,
even
we
if
can't
they win
lose
every
it.
race.
Yep.
So this is already our best ever constructors finish. Because we got fifth with Caterham.
Yeah. Oh,
so
proud.
This is good. This has been a hell of a good season. Well, sorry everyone, we didn't actually review the race properly.
But we reviewed all of the big points.
Discussion.
Yeah.
And we promised to answer questions at the end about favourite teams. And as the podcast is finishing 10 minutes early, if we stop now, should we do that? Should we?
Yeah. So this is from Com68. Hello guys. What is the best Formula One team, or your favourite Formula One team?
Based on who's on the grid right now, I have a special fondness for Sauber and Toro Rosso. I wouldn't use the term best to describe either of them, but they're just I have a genuine affection for them. I really do. Historically, I've always been a big Arrows man. Arrows was my team. I've always been into F1, but when I got into F1 in high school, when I was a bit more mature and could appreciate the racecraft and stuff, I always had a fondness for Arrows because they were that team that was sort of just quietly beavering away, and they'd always they take risks, like with building their own engine and stuff. You'd always have someone like Jos Verstappen like in the mix for the points, even though the car probably wasn't the best. It was always well built for the budget. And I thought that cars looked fantastic. From 97 onwards. Yeah, 97, 98, and the 2002 Arrows were definitely my favourites.
Yeah.
All of those cars look fantastic and sharp. I also loved Tyrrell when they were crap. Ligier I have a fondness for, and of course Minardi.
Yes.
What about you, mate?
On teams that are on the grid currently at the moment, I have a fondness for Toro Rosso because they are of Minardi heritage. Not necessarily because they're a Red Bull team or Toro Rosso. Sauber, because they are the last of my 90s still reviving. And I'm going to shout out to Force India because of their heritage going through the lines back to Jordan. So they're kind of my lovers. My lovers there. Historically, though, it's always been about the Minardi, the Forza Minardi. I have the book. They are having their...
Me too, actually.
They're having their revival again shortly, or I can't remember if they've just had it or they're just about to have it, because it's flooding my Facebook stream because I have that their Minardi pages. In Facebook you can do like one of your 5 pages that just comes up at the top of your newsfeed. It's the Minardi one, and so they keep on posting. They change their profile picture like every day, which is great because I'm like, those black and yellow ones from the late 80s, early 90s, with the Simods on. But they have their revival day at Imola quite often, and that's always good because you get lots of drivers from the old days back and out again to have a good go. I'm also a big fondness of Arrows as well. Big shout out to Osella. They were Minardi before Minardi were Minardi. With their good fun there. Also shout out to Ligier and then Prost because that blue is gorgeous. I miss that blue so much.
Yeah, me too.
Kind of
Benetton as well, actually, is usually in our honourable mentions.
Yeah.
Just because that team's, not just as Benetton, but as Renault and what were they called before Benetton? Tolman, that's it. Their heritage has just been impeccable all the way through. They're a team that always get back to the top one way or another, and I admire that sort of dogged determination.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I think we've been spoilt for choice by good teams down the years. I still look back on Stewart with fondness, just because that was the last team to, I think, enter Formula One properly and make a success of it.
Yeah. I like the little tartan stripe as well.
But at some point, we are going to have to go to that Minardi revival day. I knew they used to do them, but I didn't know they still were. So if they haven't already, if they do one next year, let's just make a commitment to go, and we can make a YouTube video while we're there. I think that'd be a good thing to do.
That'd be grand.
It really would. I think we should do that. It's like one of those one in a lifetime things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always bad at taking those opportunities. In fact, last night I had tickets in the basket to see the 30th anniversary of Surfer Rosa Pixies live concert in London. And it was like, oh, no, should I? And I think it's one of those things that sometimes you just have to, as Daniel Ricciardo would say, lick the stamp and send it. So we should definitely do that.
Yeah.
Any closing comments on actual Formula One? Because we've got 4 minutes left and we haven't actually said very much about the race. Force India, did they get points in China?
They did not.
No, it was Bahrain, wasn't it, when they got the points stuck?
They were just off, though.
They do seem to be getting some sort of handle on their car, though, which I'm encouraged by. I mean, it's not been a massive improvement, but at least they seem to be figuring things out, which is encouraging. More than we can say for Williams.
No, exactly, because apparently with Force India, their actual 2018 car is still not on the car yet. They're still running last year's front wings and stuff like that. It was due to be ready for Bahrain, but it just didn't come together. So actually, they're still working on a last year car. So I expect them to have a step forward for the European season. Same for McLaren. They're pinning their Part B car. It sounds ominous though, because from what you were saying from Renault, is that their correlation and improvements could be quite mighty in getting them into a clear fourth in the constructors. So they're going to have to work for it. And we said this all along, didn't we? That this is going to be a development season for the midfield. Which is fascinating because it means that whenever you turn up to a race, you're not quite sure who's in front.
I think we could see, and I'm loath to make this prediction, but I'll caveat it, right? If their statements about their upgrade package for Spain hold true, even if other teams improve, I think we could see a Renault on the podium.
That'd be cool. Because
before the end of the season. It might take some attrition, but I think it could happen. Which I don't think will happen for McLaren. I also want to give a quick shout out to Sauber before we leave, because obviously my favourite team's still on the grid, have to mention them. But that car continues to have, when I say race pace, obviously I don't mean it's actually fast, but it is a race pace car, isn't it? They
can't qualify
still aren't finishing last.
No, and because they both got round the Toro Rossos and were ahead of them in the race. They were mixing it around with Van Dorn and the Grosjean and Williamses. Yep,
and Grosjean, yeah.
Yep, and Williamses as well. Thank you for that. And yeah, it does seem to be one of those on the longer pace with the harder tyres working really, really well. So I think that bodes well for the future for that team. I don't think it will be just the 1 points finish that they'll get this year by a long shot.
No, definitely not. And I'm pleased to see that happening. Hopefully they can continue to develop on it. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought that was a fantastic discussion.
Yes. Thank you for coming along. Can I just give a shout out as well? It's IndyCar. I'm really sorry.
For shame.
I know. So for anyone who's looking for amazing overtakes, Sebastian Bourdais overtook 3 cars in one fell swoop. It was deemed illegal because he put a wheel into the pit lane entrance at Long Beach. But if you see it online, watch it, because he's overtaking 2 cars, and and then lapping someone a la like Zonterish, but it's down into a corner and he zigzags out from 2 and then flicks back in and under someone else. It is proper amazing. And yeah,
Another man
move.
fired by Helmut Marko.
yeah, so still F1 related, and he's still crying and he's still French. So if you need just one more overtake to get you extremely wet this weekend, have a look at that.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone who's joined. It's been great to have some questions coming in, some comments and stuff. It's always nice to have input that's not just the two of us. And we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Yes, is it Azerbaijan next, isn't it?
Yeah, that's next week, isn't it?
Yeah, early on this year.
We really should know this.
Yeah.
So we will see you the week after Azerbaijan for another race review. Well, hopefully we'll actually review the race.
Ha! That's promises. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Yeah, have an amazing weekend, guys. Thanks so much. Bye.